This is an addendum video to another video I made recently in which I explained the basics of the 5 conditionals. So if you're not 100% sure about the conditionals and who is, then I recommend having a look at that video, which I'll put up here or up here, I'm not sure which corner, before you watch this video, but come back to watch this video because this is going to be a more advanced video where I'm going to be explaining some alternatives to if in conditionals, some contractions we can use in conditionals, and some different ways of using the mixed conditionals. So let's start by looking at some alternatives to if. You may ask, what's wrong with if? Why do we need alternatives? Well, sometimes it's just to express something a little different, to give a different emphasis. And sometimes in more formal situations we use some alternatives. For your spoken English, if is usually good enough, but for an advanced level, it's good to try to use different alternatives to really express exactly what you want to say. So the first 3 alternatives we're going to look at are as long as, provided or provided that, and on condition or on condition that. And we use these 3 alternatives to if to add emphasis to the condition in the sentence, the condition part of the sentence. And we use them with the first conditional, okay? So let's see some examples. I'll make the dinner as long as you do the washing up, okay? So it's possible there to say, I'll make the dinner if you do the washing up. But we use as long as here because we want to emphasize the condition. So I'll make dinner as long as you do the washing up. So it's very important that you do the washing up or this whole condition doesn't work. Okay, so it's to add emphasis. The same with provided or provided that. So you'll pass the exam provided that you study hard, or provided you study hard. Both are equally good. So again, you could say if you study hard, but provided that adds emphasis to the condition. Again, the same with on condition or on condition that. So I'll lend you the money on condition that you pay me back before Christmas. Okay, so the condition that you pay me back before Christmas is very important. That's the only way I will lend you the money. Okay, so it's all about emphasis in that case. So now let's look at supposing. We can use supposing as an alternative to if, and it's when you're kind of introducing an interesting hypothetical question or situation. So for example, supposing you won the lottery, what would you buy? So supposing you won the lottery, not if you won the lottery, which is a perfectly good sentence. If you won the lottery, what would you buy? But this is more, just introducing an interesting topic of conversation. Supposing you won the lottery, what would you buy? And supposing no one came to the party, that would be embarrassing. So again, it's thinking of the situation, imagining the situation. Okay, and we can also use should as an alternative to if, with the first conditional again, and it's used in very formal situations, really. We don't use it in normal colloquial conversation. So let's see an example. Should you accept the job offer, you'll start on Monday. So again, if you accept the job offer, you will start on Monday. But it's just more formal. Should you accept? No other difference than that. And finally, let's look at had. So this is used with the third and mixed conditionals. It's a type of inversion. So we take away if and we swap the subject and the auxiliary, had in this case. Had you gone to bed earlier last night, you wouldn't be so tired today. That's a mixed conditional, as you know. So had you gone to bed earlier? In a normal way with if, you'd say if you had gone to bed earlier. So if you had, but this is had you gone to bed earlier. And again, it's a little more formal, but it can be used in conversation. So it's just another alternative. So now let's look at some contractions in conditional sentences. Just very quickly look at some very basic contractions that I'm sure you know. So in the first conditional, for example, if it rains, I'll take an umbrella. So it's like, if it rains, I will take an umbrella. I will contracted to I'll. And in the second conditional, if it rained, I'd take an umbrella. So again, it's I would contracted to I'd. But we see more contractions in the third and mixed conditionals because there are more verbs, there are more auxiliary verbs and main verbs. So it's we tend to contract these sentences a lot. In conversation, really, native speakers don't usually say the individual words. We don't say, I would have gone. I'll show you now what we do say. So in a third conditional sentence, if it had rained, I would have taken an umbrella. If it had, so the had is contracted to the apostrophe D, and then I would have taken an umbrella. Another option for the second part of that sentence is I'd have taken an umbrella. So the contraction there is the would becomes I'd. So again, it's apostrophe D, which you can see is the same as the I had. So I would and I had are contracted in the same way, which can be a little confusing, if I'm honest, but from the context you should be able to know which word is being contracted. Now those are all correct contractions. They're accepted in English. In written English, they're good contractions. Maybe in formal written English you wouldn't use contractions so much, but they're good. It's good English. But when we're speaking in English, we often use more contractions which we can't write. So let's look at that same sentence again, but with more contractions. So if it had rained, I'd have taken an umbrella. So if it had rained, again it's the same contraction, but in the second part, I'd have taken. So you have two contractions there together in one. As I said, you cannot write this. It's not really correct English, but it's the way most people speak. We contract a lot. So I'd have taken, I'd have. So when you're listening to English, you'll hear a lot of contractions in conditionals which make them more complicated to understand, but try to keep your ears and mind open to this and use the context more than anything. In your own speaking, you can use these contractions, it's great, but conditionals are difficult enough to construct. I wouldn't try to force these contractions into your sentence. I'd let it happen naturally if you practice a lot, if you use them a lot, but yeah, you have enough to think about with the conditionals. Okay, finally I want to look at different use of mixed conditional. Now in my first video, we saw the mixed conditional where it was the past perfect in the first clause and the present perfect in the second clause, because usually in the mixed conditionals you have a past action, a hypothetical past action, which has an effect on a hypothetical present action. That's just normally the way it goes. But there are some cases where it can be the opposite. So I'll give you an example of the traditional mixed conditional first, just to remind you. If I'd grown up in Japan, I'd speak Japanese. So if I had grown up in Japan in the past, I would speak Japanese now. But now let's look at an example of the mixed conditional, but where the first clause is in the present and the second clause is in the past. So the if clause is in the present and the result is in the past. So if I were Japanese, I would have become a Japanese teacher. Okay? Now the state of being Japanese, which I'm not, obviously, is a permanent state. So I just am not Japanese in general. But if I were Japanese in the present, in the past, I'd have become a Japanese teacher. Okay, so you can see it's not so common. Those examples are not so common, but it's important to be aware that they are possible, especially for an advanced level, which I'm sure you all have or are aiming for. Okay, I hope that helped. Again, this addendum video, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again soon for another video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.